I'm Dr. Jon Dabach, and on today's episode, we're talking about what to do if your husband or your boyfriend says he wants a threesome. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I release videos all the time, constantly about relationship advice that you absolutely need, and I'm sure will benefit you and your loved ones because let's face it, we talk about our relationships. So even if it doesn't apply to you, you're going to chitter chatter with your friends and your buddies and your family about this kind of stuff, and it tends to help. And we don't talk about this enough. Let's be honest, we just don't. So, what do you do? What do you do if your husband or your boyfriend says they want a threesome? Well, really, you're going to be in one of three camps. You're going to be in the camp where you're like, I absolutely do not want a threesome. And I'll give you the 4 steps that you should take when that happens in a moment. You're going to be, if not in that camp, you're going to be in the one where you say, I'm actually open to it and go for it. And I'll tell you what to do in a second. And then there might be some of you who are like, well, maybe I haven't thought about it. Clearly, this isn't something that was on the top of my mind, but I'm not ruling it out and whatnot. So let's dive into all of them. The first one, if you have no problem with it and you're open to it, great, right? I think the things to do are to, first of all, explore usually the preference is to have another woman by a straight male, but not always. You'd be surprised. I would say about 10-20% of the couples that come to me or the individuals who come to me expressing this desire, some of the men want to watch their wife with another man, got to be involved with it. It's kind of sexy. So for them, it's something to definitely clarify. Do not assume. I would say that's number one. Number two, I think establishing ground rules. What is going to cross the line for you if this is going to actually happen? Who is allowed to touch and do what? Is there anything that will or won't make you comfortable? Kind of what's on the menu, what's not on the menu. You have to have those conversations. Who is and isn't out of bounds? So the second that you agree to a threesome, you're not just going to go out and have one that night, most likely, unless you guys happen to be incredibly social and know where to go to meet somebody that both of you would be excited to engage with. Usually, if you're in a committed relationship, there is a little bit more of a workup. Now, the exception to that is, again, if you're social and you know where to go and hook up at a club or something like that, or if one of you has someone specific in mind that you know will be down. Usually, this will be a colleague or a friend. You need to make sure it's okay with both you and your partner that that person is not out of bounds. So I'll give you an example. I had a man who said, I really want to have a threesome. I know my wife's open to it. And I have a coworker, and I went, whoa, hold on a second. This is a woman that you see every day at work. Technically speaking, you see her for more hours than your own wife. I don't know if she's going to be okay with that. And he's like, what are you talking about? She's going to be fine. And lo and behold, he brought her into a session because she's like, absolutely not. She is off limits. I don't even want to know if she exists anymore because the fact that I know he's sexualizing her. So you have to be considerate about who, right? If you don't have anybody in mind, know that it takes a little bit of time to kind of find somebody. And you can definitely take a picture of the two of you together and put that on apps like Tinder. You can use sites like Craigslist for dating. I would say all of those have their own risks. All of this does have its own risks in terms of meeting people who aren't the most kind of stable of characters. Be patient. Don't rush into anything. And also talk about logistics. Logistics are important, not just in the bedroom, but where is it going to be? At your house? Is it going to be at a hotel? And all that kind of stuff. So just keep all of that in mind. Um, and you have to also ask yourself, if it's with another woman, where are you on the sexual spectrum? Are you very straight and really you don't want to touch the woman at all? Are you bisexual? Are you actually more leaning into women, but your husband swept you off your feet, or your boyfriend, and this is actually a good thing? There's a term I heard from a patient I had once that was actually very clever. She said, I'm spaghetti, which means I'm straight till wet. And I thought, oh, okay, that explains a lot. And a lot of us do get more open-minded once we're kind of hot and heavy and going through things. So those are the simple things you should do if you are down for it. Get the logistics down, get the rules down, and then start working together. Also know that if you are a woman, this applies to all three categories. Keep in mind that men are horrible at planning. And so chances are you're going to have to do some of the heavy lifting, even if it is something for him, in terms of finding a woman or a man who is who is open to engaging with you guys as a couple. I hate saying that, but it's just from anecdotal experience. Men just kind of suck at this stuff. Now, there are going to be exceptions of men who will be like, I know what to do. I'm going to post this. I'm going to call this. I'm going to go to this. Sure, there are those men, but they are more rare. So just know that, chances are you're going to have to do some of this heavy lifting. Now, what if you're in the other two camps? What if you're, maybe open to it, but you haven't thought about it, or, you really feel like it's not comfortable? I would say in either of those cases, the 4 steps you need to do right after he says something like that are going to be the same. If you are vehemently against it, even doing these 4 steps are going to be a nice way to kind of let him down. And if you are open to it, it'll explore the emotional and logistical kind of things that go into doing something like this in a proper way, where you can make the decision definitively, or hopefully definitively, of whether or not this is going to be for you. So the first one is open a non-judgmental conversation. Create a safe space. Don't be rushed. Take your phones, put them in a little drawer. Don't get distracted. If you have kids, make sure they're asleep, or you do it away from home. And use open-ended questions, right, to understand your partner's motivations. Things like, can you tell me more about why this is important to you? And if they give you answers that are short, like, well, it's always been a fantasy of mine, you have to kind of pry and say, well, tell me what about the fantasy is exciting. And they'll say things like, well, just having 2 women. And they'll say, okay, well, is it any 2 women? Is it me with another woman? Try to get him to talk more in open-ended, don't ask binary questions. There's a time and a place for yes, no, I like it, I don't like it. This is a time where you want to give him a question where he can go off for 2 minutes straight, kind of telling you why he's always wanted it and how he fantasizes. The more you can get out of him, the better, because it'll inform you as to which way you want to take the conversation next. The second thing is you have to assess your own feelings. You have to assess your boundaries. Just like with a woman who is definitely open to it, you have to know where is the boundary, right? You have to say, like, look, I'm uncomfortable with another man, or I'm uncomfortable with another woman. I know that right away, but maybe I can explore some of this. Can we, I'm not super open to it. And again, if you know that your boundary is a hard no, what I would say is, hey, I need some time to think about this. My boundaries are really not solidified because this is new, and I just need time to formulate a thought. But I'm going to be honest with you, and I'm leaning more towards a no, because I just don't think I can handle emotionally seeing you with somebody else and sharing you. So I don't want you to get your hopes up, but I will kind of put some thought and consideration into it. That's a very appropriate thing to do. So you have to kind of determine what those boundaries are in either of those cases, whether it's a definite no, or leaning towards a no, or like a down the line maybe. Then I think it's important to discuss the impact on your relationship. I would say this is even important if you are down for it and it's an absolute yes, right? You have to talk about the dynamics, the trust, the emotional intimacy that might be compromised, that might be shifted, and really kind of be transparent. Talk about everything you're worried about. What if you like her more or him more? What if I like it and it becomes our new normal? I'm not so sure that I'd be comfortable with it. Who would that make me feel like I am? What if you end up saying, we absolutely have to do this? You tend to be pretty insistent. And then what if I decide I don't like it and you loved it and you want more? Where does that put us? All of those are very legitimate questions. And so talking about the positives, talking about the negatives. I mean, the positives are, it could be exciting. It could kind of scratch an itch that somebody's had. But really kind of opening the forum so that you get a thorough understanding. Now, I will say, just take a pause here for a second and say that I am, technically neutral on what you do in your bedroom. I really don't care. My 3 rules are that everybody's an adult, everybody is consensual, and there's no permanent physical damage. Those are the three rules, right? So if everyone's an adult, it's consensual, and there's no physical damage that's permanent, I'm okay with even, slapping and using leathers and things like that, and kind of, inflicting a little bit of playful pain. But you have to be safe, and absolutely, I don't believe there is any room for scarring or any kind of permanent damage physically. Sexuality should not have that high of a price, period. But as long as those three rules are met, then, if you're looking for my opinion on it, I'd say if it's something you like and everybody's on board and they're adults, go for it. Finally, the fourth thing that I want to talk about really quickly is to explore alternatives, and set clear agreements with those alternatives. So if you're open to exploring it, discuss alternatives that might satisfy those desires of his while respecting your comfort level. So I'll give you a few examples from actual patients. One woman said she would never be comfortable seeing her man with another person, male or female, but she was willing to fool around with a girl with him in the room while he watched. That's some kind of compromise. He loved it, and she liked it, and they made it a pretty regular thing. I'd say like once every few months. And they had a specific person and whatnot. Sometimes women are okay with letting the man do the same where they watch, right? But they don't want to physically engage. That's an option. Sometimes the boundaries are a lot more strict, and it's like, look, I'm not comfortable with it, but let's start small, and maybe we can put on pornography while we're having sex, and kind of explore looking at other women, or other men, and kind of at least visually getting there. There's a lot of different things you can explore. So you need to agree on what those boundaries are, take baby steps if necessary. And if you feel like it really isn't for you, and you've given them that space to express why, and you still feel strongly about your boundary, you have to hold it politely. And at a certain point, if they keep bringing it up, you have to, holding that boundary means maybe taking yourself out of the relationship. So if you're with someone who really does not want to stay strictly monogamous, and they say, look, this is a really, really important thing to me, I really need this in my life, you have to be able to say, I appreciate that, but that's not something I'm comfortable with. And if that is a higher priority for you than our relationship, it's not going to work out. That's the way you express it. And you have to say, look, and I'm going to be very sad. I might even be devastated, but at the end of the day, I'm never going to be okay with it. And if that's something you want in your life, I can't control you. I would ask you to reconsider. But if you've made your decision and that is more important than the relationship we've built, we're going to have to part. And that's how you hold a boundary. So I hope this was helpful. My name is Dr. Jon Dabach again. I wish you great sex and great fun with your partner, and to do everything in a compassionate and loving and emotional way. I will see you next time.